So this is part 2 of the great going out of business antique bookstore find that I made last weekend. This book right here, do you recognize that name? This author wrote one of the great classics of archaeology called Gods, Graves, and Scholars. It's one of my favorite books. And I had no idea that he had done this book. I'm very interested in the early days of the cinema. This really tells you all about how it came to be. This looks like an amazing book, so I'm thrilled. It's profusely illustrated and has lots and lots of information and good material. We know who that is, right? Georges Méliès. I can't say his name. All right, jumping over into some cartoon books. Peter Arno, the great Peter Arno. One of the signature cartoonists of the New Yorker. Did a lot of covers for the New Yorker. This is a big, thick book of his cartoons. And here's another one. And I was moving so fast, guys, that, I just, on the shelf, I just saw this, right? And I was like, okay, grab it. So I didn't even realize that I got an extra one of these. So, like I said in my first post, I have an extra one. If somebody wants one, give me a shout. We'll figure something out. This. You ever run across these? Do you know what these are? This is a different book every time you find it, which is kind of amazing. They're bound. They are the extra stock. Okay, so what is it? Judge Magazine and Film Fun. And I think there's one other title which I can't remember. They would take their extra copies and they would bind them randomly. So you get 2 or 3 issues. This is Judge right here. This is an issue of Judge. They've stripped away the title page, so all you're getting is the contents and the cartoons. And interestingly, I haven't seen many that have Film Fun in them, but this one does. This one has an issue of Film Fun in it. Lots of pictures of movie stars in here, and a few cartoons. In fact, do you recognize that artist? That look familiar? That's the great Zim, who was, of course, the signature cartoonist for Judge, so it makes sense that he would work on the companion magazine. Okay, I'm going to get through this as quick as I can. I got some amazing paperbacks in brilliant condition. This one's really interesting. I've never seen this before. Lots of cartoons and photos about can-can dancing. I love these things. E.B. White. Book of Esquire cartoons. In color. Some of them at least. I love these. These are leather bound. This was a series. It's not the complete series, but it's the works of Robert Louis Stevenson. And man, I wish you could feel how soft this is. It is so friendly to the hand. It is a perfect size for reading. And it's wonderfully typeset with a lot of space between the lines. It's very easy to read. That's unusual for books of this era. Usually the text is crowded together. This was obviously done by somebody who loves Stevenson's work. This is a really interesting volume here. I'd never seen that one before. And yeah, here's a book on the film industry, how to make, or the making of, how to make industrial films, basically. Jam handy like that. Tons of amazing photos and information. Truman Capote, first edition. Robert Service. Oh man. This is the guy that wrote, some of the classic poems about the adventures in the Yukon, the shooting of Dan McGrew and stuff like that. This is his autobiography. He wrote 2 volumes of his autobiography, and this is the first volume. And this, like I said, I think I paid $1 for it. I don't think it even had a price. I looked it up. It regularly goes for anywhere from $50 to $150. I was really glad to find this because I'm very interested in this writer. Well, sorry, Curtis, if you're watching this. My friend Curtis Finley sent me one of these. I couldn't pass this up for $1, so it's got a loose page in it, but I do have an extra if anybody is interested. George Price. This is a really weird one, man. I didn't even look at it till I got home. Look at that art. It turns out that it's all about the Cold War. You've got drawings of people in the news in the late 50s. Oh, 1951. Okay, the early 50s. And it's got this weird. There's some speech balloons with this weird typesetting, and it's all quotes from Shakespeare. So you get the quote at the bottom, which is sort of a sardonic, I guess, commentary on whoever that person was, that politician or that person in the news. It's an odd concept for a book, but, you know, hey, it's George Price, so love his stuff. Sorry, I'm fumbling. It's hard to do this with one hand. Another cartoon book I found, Gardner Ray. He was all over the magazines, like Collier's. It's a very recognizable style. Gets off a good one once in a while. Speaking of Robert Service, Rhymes of a Red Cross Man. This is one of his most famous books, probably, maybe his most famous book. And this was actually a war book. This is from World War I. And let me find something that caught my eye. Yeah, there it was. Did you see that? I love the things you find in books sometimes, and this one is really cool. New Elliott Cafe, Seattle. So this is a business card for a cafe in Seattle, and on the back here we have carefully lettered name of a woman, Miss Verl Price. Oh, what does that say? Oh, Auburn. Yeah, Auburn. That's a city outside of Seattle. It's, if you look close, you can see that she drew it in pencil first and then went over it in ink. So I presume maybe this was the family cafe, Kirk and Norris, although her last name is Price. I don't know. I'm not sure what this is all about. And there's the old phone number, CA9913. Biography of Robert Service, Pogo book, another Pogo book, James Thurber classic, The White Deer, illustrated by the great, where are you? The great Don Freeman and James Thurber. So that's an example of Don Freeman's art. He illustrated The Human Comedy by William Saroyan, which you probably have seen around if you're like me and you look at this type of material. And of course Don Freeman has some classic children's books and was, among other things, a cartoonist in the magazines. Joyce Kilmer, who wrote the famous poem about a tree, collection of her essays. I'd never read anything by her. This looks like a really good essay on the surface. Oh, one of my favorite guys, Grandville. You know this guy? Oh man, this guy, you know, I don't even know how to explain this guy. These are all his animal figures, or not all, but a collection of them. So they're anthropomorphic animals. This is before the funny animal, or maybe the first funny animal, depending upon how you want to think about it. This guy was a hell of an artist, and he had an astonishing imagination. Yeah, sort of like the missing link between Bosch and Dolly or something. Always interested in books on Twain. This has classic essays. This, I think they just threw this in and gave it to me. It is one of those scrapbooks that have collections of comics. Jimmy Hatlow. They'll do it every time. There's some other ones in here. There's some J.R. Williams. Johnny Gruel. This shop was one of those shops that tear pages out of books, tear the illustrations out, and sell them for more than they could get for the whole volume. This is the great William Heath Robinson, who, you know, did sort of Goldbergish invention cartoons. He was also an amazing illustrator. And I'm really glad to find these. I think they're quite beautiful, printed beautifully. Got this on spec, didn't have time to check it out. Sometimes you can find really interesting comic strips or illustrators picking up, cartoonists and illustrators picking up some extra money by working for the kids magazines, but it's pretty standard. This was pretty neat though. It's an issue of Judge from 1921. Not bad for a buck. And this is actually this is about prohibition. It's about making your own liquor, including, I guess they would put somehow raisins figured into bootleg liquor at this time, maybe for flavoring, or maybe somehow they would ferment. I'm not sure. There were some comics. I just grabbed a couple. Most of them were Archie's and 1970s comics, but I love the American Comics Group stuff. You know, Ogden Whitney. As a matter of fact, is Ogden Whitney in here? I haven't even checked to see. That's Pete Costanza, who used to do the Captain Marvel stories. Anyway, here's the other comic I got. Wonderful Steve Ditko. You know this series, Shade the Changing Man? Doesn't make a lick of sense, but it's kind of fun to dwell in Ditko's imagination for a little while. There's another illustration that I liked. I don't know who did that. Another Johnny Gruel. This is really interesting. This is the first issue of a magazine called Jones or Joneses. I guess that's an apostrophe. This caught my eye. Jack Woodford. He was a pulp writer. And this is all about the movies, but it's a different kind of movie magazine than I've ever seen. And it's got cartoons. So when I saw it had cartoons, I was like, $1. Buy it. Get it. Go. And I was flipping through it the other day, and I don't know if I can... Yeah, I was astonished to find this. Hollywood Personalities album. So let's see who we got. Lloyd and Helen Wright. I'm not sure who they are. Charles Owens. Not sure, but cool picture. Ted Cook. I think he was a writer, maybe. And this guy. Sure you heard of this guy. George Herriman. I've seen that picture before. You know, it's in some of the books on Herriman, but it's kind of amazing to find it in this magazine from August 1937. A book about illustrating the Raven. Oh, check this out. 3 bound volumes of Punch. 1898, 1911, 1912. This was a British magazine full of cartoons. The equivalent over in America was Puck and then Judge. And these are all British cartoonists, and I was hoping there'd be some H.M. Bateman in here, but I guess these are a little too early. Really great cartooning. I haven't spent hardly any time at all with this, but looking through the cartoonist names, and there's an index in the back of the cartoonist names. Pictures and sketches, it tells you. These are all names that are unknown to me, for the most part. So, yeah, I'm realizing I know hardly anything about this period of British cartooning. I've been studying the Hal Roach studio quite a lot, and it's neat to find this book by two giants of this type of writing. Each episode is recapped. Glad to find that. Films of Greta Garbo. How could I pass this up? It's a coverless copy of A.B. Frost. Amazing book, Stuff and Nonsense. It's beautifully drawn, funny cartoons. You might even say Screwball or an antecedent of Screwball. An issue of illustration. Couldn't pass that up for $1. If you don't know about this, this is a fantastic magazine. Animated cartoons for the beginner. Holy moly. Walter Foster. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Oh my God. Here's a Harrison Cady cover. Here's a 1903 issue of Collier's with a Lion Decker cover, Charles Dana Gibson centerfold, and some other stuff. Speaking of A.B. Frost, here's his non-cartooning side. Man, I can hardly believe that's art. Especially, you know, from this time period, which was, when was this? 1904. The reproduction in this looks like photos almost. Frost was some kind of an artist. And, gosh, believe it or not, gang, there's even more, and I'm not sure what I did with it. But I'll end with this. Collection of Napoleon cartoons by Clifford McBride. And, what's amazing is it's signed by the artist. They didn't mention it. This is from 1932. They wanted $95. Maybe because, you know, you see this is printed on here, this autograph. And here's the dog's autograph, Napoleon. But I really think this is actually written on by Clifford McBride. Isn't that cool? And, man, beautiful reproduction, and this book is huge. So there you go. There's a quick, rushed look at the great bookstore going on a business find.